Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I am your host, Kimberly Cloud. Um, I'm going to edit a video later on today, but until then, I have some juicy gossip to give to you. Let me get on to other platforms. We're going to listen to a couple of people, such as Ted Cruz, but first we're going to go from easy to hard. So first we're going to look at Trump lawyer. Someone please call 911.
Donald Trump continues to fight the left's lawfare in New York. Earlier today, his attorneys filed a motion to have Judge Engoron recused from that sham civil fraud case. Remember, that was about a case about valuations, and he's the judge that put a valuation on Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. And if you want to buy a 2-acre lot in Palm Beach, it's on the ocean, even though Mar-a-Lago's on the ocean and on the intercoastal, and a historic property and a club and 54 bedrooms, et cetera, in pristine condition. The 2-acre lot would cost you, well, between 1.5 million and higher. Anyway, accusing him of engaging in actions fundamentally incompatible with the responsibilities attendant to donning the black robe and sitting in judgment. And while the left continues to spend time and resources waging endless lawfare against Trump in New York, the city, they are reeling from more shocking crime. Remember the pro-Palestinian mob that took over that building at Columbia University? You know, the one that required the NYPD officers to climb through the open window to evacuate that building? Well, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, the guy that ran on getting Trump, his office announced today charges would be dropped against the vast majority of those rioters. Why? Ask yourself.
Okay, I'm confused. Why are charges being dropped against them and they committed a crime? When same thing with the African American guy that strangled an African American woman, got 7 years for it. He committed the crime. He knew he committed the crime, got 7 years for it, and then did it again.
The answer is simple. Their last name is not Trump. And meanwhile, the left is in full panic mode as we wait for the Supreme Court of our great country and their decision on Trump's immunity in the January 6th case, which could come any day now. Now, Trump legal spokesperson Alina Habba and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz join us. Alina, let's look at this case. This action refers to a conversation that Engoron allegedly had with the New York City real estate attorney regarding the merits of this case in which he's the judge of, and the permissible scope of the New York State Attorney General's and the court's own authority under executive law. And here's something that really shocked me, and the consequences of this court's decision on business in the state. Okay. Is any of this, including the $18 million valuation of Mar-a-Lago, ethical?
No, but misapplying law to fact is very different than what this motion is. And I just want to be really clear for the listeners on what happened here. This attorney, Mr. Bailey, went on TV bragging about the fact that he had spoken with the judge that was sitting on our case, Judge Engoron. The judge had not issued his final decision on this case. And this attorney, who has sued Trump, Sean, more than 6 times, has now gone up to a judge sitting on an active case and spoken to him about the case. That is not allowed. He never notified the parties. Not allowed. This goes way beyond anything else that we already know. And it gave us another reason to say, yet again, you need to step down. You need to take your robe, your code of judicial conduct seriously. As we know and have heard, there's obviously the Office of Attorney Ethics and Judicial Commission looking at this. But We cannot wait any longer for these judges to sit there and make the right decision. So we have to act, and the Trump team's going to continue to push and put the true facts out. We've also subpoenaed the individual. We're going to look at what their communications were and see how much more corrupt, let me correct myself, this case is from what we already knew.
Would this vacate the decision?
If this was influenced, if we do find out about it, absolutely there are grounds to vacate the decision for a reversal. Frankly, as we know, this case was a sham to start with. As you said, Bragg has completely dismissed people that were violent on campuses. But when it comes to Trump, we have a different standard. This has to stop. I can tell you in November, I would push President Trump 100% to correct the judicial process and to stop this dual system of justice. It has to. We have to reverse it. The case was a joke to start with, just like every other case against President Trump.
Let's get your take, Jason Chaffetz.
We're talking about the valuation of Trump properties, and you had, this testimony that was so sharp. It was so good. And they're going after Donald Trump on these paperwork issues. There are people getting murdered and slaughtered. There are people that have of a certain faith, the Jewish faith, that are being intimidated on the streets of New York. You have protesters that are violently going after these buildings, defacing buildings, taking over buildings. You have these New York City cops that have to put their lives on the line, and then they go and they drop all the cases against those people. Instead, they want to go after Donald Trump because of paperwork issues. What the crap is wrong with New York?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I don't care if it's a civil case or the sham trial that took place, with Alvin Bragg, and yet it continues. But meanwhile, the people that take over buildings in New York are the people on videotape, Jason, beating the living crap out of police officers. They don't even get charged. They get a slap on the wrist and they get walked right out the door, and they get no bail. Explain how that's justice in America.
Well, it's not. And everybody sees it. America understands this. America understands that it is fundamentally not justice. And you know what? Americans are very fair people. They're very forgiving people. If it's a kid on a ball field and he gets wronged, you know what? Everybody says, hey, that was wrong. And that's why they're looking at Donald Trump and they're just saying they're picking on the Trumps. They're picking on the Trump kids. It's not fair. That's not who we are in the United States of America. And at every opportunity, Joe Biden could have done something to show that he was magnanimous, to show that he was fair. He never, ever did that. This guy is evil in the way he attacks the Trump family.
All right, last word, Alina Habba.
I'm just really proud of the team, and I want to say one thing very clearly. I know that everybody hears a lot of noise of this legal lawfare against President Trump, but as we've seen, every single one from Jack Smith to Fannie to now Engoron will come down crashing like the domino effect that they are. They are fake, and we will clean house in November, that's for sure. Proud of the team, and I want to say one thing very clearly. I know that everybody hears a lot of noise of this legal lawfare against President Trump, but as we've seen, every single one from Jack Smith to Fannie to now Engoron will come down crashing like the domino effect that they are. They are fake, and we will clean house in November, that's for sure.
Pursuant to an agreement with the ranking member Nadler and without objection, Chairman Comer and ranking member Raskin will be permitted to participate in today's hearing for the purposes of making opening statements and asking questions of the witness. They each will receive 3 minutes for an opening statement and 5 minutes to question the witness. The chair now recognizes himself for an opening statement. Robert Hur was appointed special counsel on January 12th, 2023. He had a fundamental question to address. Did Joe Biden unlawfully retain classified information? The answer, yes, he did. Page 1 of Mr. Hur's report, he says this: our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. He further writes, Mr. Biden willfully retained marked classified documents about Afghanistan and handwritten notes in his notebooks, which he stored in unsecure places in his home. Joe Biden kept classified information, and Joe Biden failed to store classified information properly. Mr. Hur made these determinations after interviewing 147 witnesses. He examined 7 million documents, including emails, text messages, photographs, videos, toll records, and other materials from both classified and unclassified sources. But there's more. Joe Biden not only kept information he wasn't allowed to keep, and he not only failed to secure that information properly, he also shared it with people who weren't allowed to see it. Shared that information with his ghostwriter. And remember, this is information that only individuals with a security clearance are supposed to see. Mr. Hur told us on page 200 of his report that it's the kind of information that, quote, risk serious damage to America's national security. What did Joe Biden have to say about all this? What was his explanation? On page 94 of Mr. Hur's report, Joe Biden said he took his notebooks with him after his vice presidency because, quote, they're mine. And every president before me has done the same exact thing. Never mind the fact that he had never been president when he took this information. But what comes through is Joe Biden felt he was entitled. You can almost hear it. You can feel the arrogance in this statement. They're mine. But even with all that, Mr. Hur chose not to bring charges because, quote, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury as he did in our interview of him as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. A forgetful old man who Mr. Hur said did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended, and forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term as vice president began. Mr. Hur produced a 345-page report. But in the end, it boils down to a few key facts. Joe Biden kept classified information. Joe Biden failed to properly secure classified information. And Joe Biden shared classified information with people he wasn't supposed to. Joe Biden broke the law. But because he's a forgetful old man who would appear sympathetic to a jury, Mr. Hur chose not to bring charges. Mr. Hur, we think it's important that you be able to respond to President Biden's response to your report. So we're going to play a short video of President Biden's press conference after your report was released, because there's things in this press conference that the President of the United States says that are directly contradicted by what you found in your report. So if we could play that video.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Let me say a few things before I take your questions. As you know, the special counsel released his findings today about their look into my handling of classified documents.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally
out. How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's
Do you feel your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President,
for criminal liability today, do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. As it goes in and points out, things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me, but my staff.
Mr. President, Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer
Because
to
I'm the
that
most
question?
qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that, guys? Mr. President, why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it. With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said.
Well, no, I did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
Let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what he was referring to. It was not classified information in that document. That was not classified.
When you look back at this incident, is there anything you would do differently now? And do you think that a special prosecutor should have been appointed in the first place in both of these cases?
First of all, what I would have done is overseen the transfer of the material that was in my office, in my offices. I should have done that. If I go back, I didn't have the responsibility to that. That was my staff was supposed to do that, and they referenced that in the report. And my staff did not do it in the way that, for example, I didn't know how half the boxes got in my garage until I found out staff gathered them up, put them together, and took them to the garage in my home. And all the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked. It was in my house. It wasn't out in, like in Mar-a-Lago, in a public place where, and none of it was high classified. Didn't have any of that red stuff on it. You know what I mean? Around the corners? None of that. And so I wish I had paid more attention to how the documents were being moved and where. I thought they were being moved to the archives. I thought all was being moved. That's what I thought. Now, what was the last part of your question?
Whether a special counsel should have been appointed in this case and in the case of your rival president, former president.
I think a special counsel should have been appointed. And the reason I think a special counsel should have been appointed is because I did not want to be in a position that they looked at Trump and weren't going to look at me, just like they looked at the vice president. And the fact is they made a firm conclusion. I did not break the law, period. Thank you all very, very much. The hostage negotiation. I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the President of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. Let them make them part of the Middle East and recognize them fully in return for certain things that the United States would commit to do. And the commitment that we were proposed to do related to two items. I'm not going to go in detail, but one of them was to deal with the protection against their arch enemy to the northwest, the northeast, I should say. The second one, by providing ammunition and material for them to defend themselves. Coincidentally, that's the time frame when this broke out. I have no proof what I'm about to say, but it's not unreasonable to suspect that the Hamas understood what was about to take place and wanted to break it up before it happened.
Thank you, everybody.
We're going to get everybody to hold for a moment. Chair now recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Nadler, for an opening statement. Mr. Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield my time to Chair Jordan.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Shank, did Gail Wright really tell you that?
Yes.
Justice Alito said he didn't tell her. She said she didn't tell him, but you're sure she told you.
Absolutely.
Now, you wrote a book a couple of years ago. Is that right? 2018. You wrote,
Yes.
Wrote a book.
Yes.
I want to read a section from that book. It's a section where you relate you and your family attended oral arguments at the court. You're there in the courtroom, and that directly involved your brother Paul, also a reverend. And I just want to read this section. You said, with the single rap of the gavel, Chief Justice William Rehnquist announced, "We'll hear argument first this morning in number 995-1065, Reverend Paul Shank and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York." Paul and I winked at each other, knowing we had made history with that reverend in his name. It had been a minor victory when we persuaded the court that reverend should remain before Paul's name, even though we had been told repeatedly that legal briefs never included such titles. You thought it was important that, obviously based on what you said, you thought it was important that the title Reverend be in front of Paul's name. Is that right?
Correct.
And why was that?
Because we saw it as a religious liberty matter, and that would make it clear that it fit in that category.
Did Chief Justice Rehnquist really say that the way I just read it from your book?
I can't say that I remember.
Well, you're pretty darn specific here. You got the number, case number 95-1065. Very next word says Reverend Paul Shank. You made it a big deal. Thought it's the first time it's ever happened. I'm just asking, did it really happen?
I wish I could tell. I would have to go back and review that.
So it may not have?
Possibly not.
Why do you say possibly not? You were emphatic in your book.
I would have to go back.
Well, we did go back. We did go back, and I got the transcript right here. Proceedings, 10:05 a.m., Chief Justice Rehnquist. We'll hear argument first this morning in number 95-1065, Paul Shank and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York. Did you hear it?
I did.
Was there a word missing?
Title Reverend.
Yeah, wasn't in there. In your book, you said it was a big deal, so much so that you winked at your brother. Did you wink at your brother?
Yes.
What'd you wink for if it wasn't in the title?
Well, it was our case.
But that's not, you said you winked because they included Reverend in the title, and the transcript says Mr. Rehnquist didn't.
Perhaps not.
Perhaps? Court reporter get it wrong? Did he say it? The court reporter get it wrong?
Well, then.
Well, we got the audio too. I'm going to play that for everyone to hear.
We'll hear argument first this morning, number 95-1065, Paul Shank and Dwight Saunders versus Pro-Choice Network of Western New York.
Reverend, did you hear that?
I did.
Was there a word missing that's different from what you put in your book?
A title, yes.
What was that title?
Reverend.
Reverend was not there. Right? Did you wink at your brother?
I think I did. In fact,
think I actually
Oh, wow.
hooked him.
So now you got more details. You got the key detail wrong, what you were writing about in your book, but now you remember an additional detail. You not only winked, you elbowed your brother, even though the reason for the wink in your writing was the fact that Reverend was using the title, something that had never been done, but it wasn't used. But we're supposed to believe you today. We're supposed to take your word over Justice Alito's word. We're supposed to take your word over a lady who gave you dollars donated to your cause, Miss Gail Wright. You're disparaging her name, Justice Alito's name, and the court. And you have this, which obviously didn't happen. We got the transcript, we got the audio, but you made it a big deal in your book. One thing I've learned, people who mislead folks on small things, mislead them on big things.
Ooh, no comment.
And you know what? You can lie in a book, it's not a crime. You can lie to the New York Times, that's not a crime. But when you come in front of Congress and you say things that are not true, you're not allowed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. And we have seen it. You're not supposed to do that. I yield back.
Hold up.
About how you feel in that moment. And so while
22%, Trump's getting 22% of the black vote. And she was trying to say that's because black people are too dumb to know better. So this is what the left thinks of you. Blacks.
here's the deal. Perception is reality. And so when you look at the data that was provided in this poll, it talks about how people feel. And when people decide whether they're going to the poll or whether they're not going to the poll, it's all about how you feel in that moment. And so while the facts may not align with their feelings are dictating their reality. Their reality is that they said that they feel better or they felt better when Trump was in office.
They don't feel like they're doing better. They were doing better.
Donald Trump's getting 22% of the black vote.
Let's watch that again.
And she was trying to say that's because black people are too dumb to know better. So this is what the left thinks of you. Blacks.
Here's the deal. Perception is reality. And so when you look at the data that was provided in this poll, it talks about how people feel. And when people decide whether they're going to the poll or whether they're not going to the poll, it's all about how you feel in that moment. And so while the facts may not align with their feelings are dictating their reality. Their reality is that they said that they feel better or they felt better when Trump was in office.
They don't feel like they're doing better. They were doing better.
Donald Trump's getting 22%.
Just one more time to let it sink in what she said.
Of the black vote. And she was trying to say that's because black people are too dumb to know better. So this is what the left thinks of you. Blacks.
Here's the deal. Perception is reality. And so when you look at the data that was provided in this poll, it talks about how people feel. And when people decide whether they're going to the poll or whether they're not going to the poll, it's all about how you feel in that moment. And so while the facts may not align with their feelings are dictating their reality.
That is gaslighting. She gaslighted the crap. Let's finish it.
Their reality is that they said that they feel better or they felt better when Trump was in office.
That's enough.
Free.
Yeah.
And it's been the ruling. Michelle Obama goes to Princeton for free.
Yeah.
And it's been the ruling class her whole life.
Yeah.
And she's still lecturing you about how she's a victim of racism. Hillary Clinton, exact same thing. Goes to Wellesley, spends her entire life in the ruling class, and she's still whining about how she's discriminated against. Why are they doing that?
Yeah. And did you ever see, they'll have like pictures of side by side, but it'll be like pictures of like Jimmy Carter's house and Obama's house.
Exactly.
And it totally represents something about the like corroding of our soul.
In a white neighborhood, you should be required to live in the hood if you're Barack Obama. And
if you're using that card.
You use that card. The only reason you got elected was because of your race. You spent your entire 8 years inflaming race hate in our country. And then you go to Martha's Vineyard, the whitest zip code in the world. Not allowed.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that.
Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson do not hold back when exposing the way the Obamas and Clintons use the race and victim cards as keys to their success.
How would you feel if you got money, and how would you feel if that happened to you. Think about what he said. It's not racist what he said. If they are saying that they are being targeted and that they are being demoralized and everybody is against them, picking on them, and yada, 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 then you move to Martha's Vineyard, which I never got to see. One day I'll get to see it, whether I live there or not. But I want you to think about it very carefully. When you go to Martha's Vineyard, that is the whitest zip code. And some of y'all like, yeah, it's true. The hotel rooms out there, I tried to get a hotel room out there. 400, the lower end of the spectrum, 400 a night. Plus, I'm pretty sure there's a $200 deposit for incidentals per night. Think about that. They don't play there. An average room here is $400 with $200 incidentals. An average normalized room, like maybe the regular Hilton, is like $200 with a $50 incidental fee. But imagine going there. It was pretty cool in Ketchikan, Alaska, because it was an incidental fee, but it was a cheap hotel, but it was worth it. So I would take a trip out there if you've never been.
Barack Obama's campaign in 2008, first of all, it was just leaving how you feel about the guy aside, it was an amazing campaign. It was unlike anything that had ever been run before. It was genius. Yes, it was totally brilliant. It was now, of course, it wasn't what they presented it as. No. It wasn't like a grassroots campaign. It was,
let's sort of like elect the black guy and get past the race stuff. I loved that.
Well, especially because that was his message.
That was his message. And
let's get past the race stuff.
I love that.
He goes, then I think essentially what happened, and it was around Obama's re-election campaign, this is where things really went off the rails in this country, was that he got in there and continued and expanded all the worst of the Bush policies.
Oh, of course.
And so they almost had nothing to run on. And so they decided to pivot to a culture war instead.
Many of us still live in fear as we go to the grocery store or worry about walking our dogs or allowing our children to get a license. I mean, just imagine.
You know, I'm not trying to talk junk, Michelle Obama, but I don't have my kids. I can never see my kids take their first license or drive their first car. I worry every day about them. I worry that something may happen to them. Why do we even care about worrying about your children when I'm not saying that in a bad way? I'm saying that why would I even worry about your kids? I understand that they're great students. You pay $70,000 a month for them to go to college. I couldn't even pay $25 a month for lunch for them. So what? I don't get it.
Girls driving, they're driving. Yeah. But every time they get in a car by themselves, I worry about what assumption is being made by somebody.
But you got girls. You have girls. I have all boys. I have all boys, not knowing what's going on with my children. Secret Service watch your children, so please stop it.
Who doesn't know everything about them. The fact that they are good students and polite girls, but maybe they're playing their music a little loud. Maybe somebody sees the back of their head and makes an assumption. I, like so many parents of Black kids, have to, that the innocent act of getting a license puts fear in our hearts.
Candace Owens made an appearance on Tucker's show and shared her opinion on this.
Why? I notice a theme here. There are a lot of extremely rich people who are deeply miserable and desperate to have you believe they're victims. What is that?
Yeah,
It's
it's great. I mean,
unfortunate to me.
LeBron James living in Bel Air, he's a victim. Meghan Markle went downgraded from billionaire to multimillionaire. She's a victim. They want you to know that they're all victims. It's because they're trying to distract us. The truth is that they view us as peasants. They're trying to make it seem like, hey, when the peasants turn against us because they're actually robbing all of them, we don't want them to look at us. We want to make them think that we're one of us. They're not one of us. They're nothing.
How could they be, Candace? You are correct. How could they be one of us? Do you remember our great President Obama walking in the ghetto neighborhood streets? Did he really grow up in the hood? Was it Hawaii, Chicago? His wife is in a prestigious ruling class school, and she's been like that forever. How can they do that when I'm struggling in the classes that I'm at and you can see that? Wake up. The only thing they can relate to us by is their race.
Like us. They don't live like us. She has nothing that goes on in her life that is similar to the average American. Yet she keeps trying to use her skin color and her complexion as a way to make people believe that she's suffering. And she's absolutely not suffering. And everyone should be aware that if you're watching this and you think that LeBron James and Meghan Markle and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are oppressed, you are a fool. You have been fooled. They are doing just fine.
I have to agree with Candace. Anyone who believes these multimillionaires share our day-to-day struggles is an idiot. And as unsettling as it may be, the Obamas, Clintons, and Bidens have effectively commercialized their political careers. They've gotten away with using identity politics to exploit and manipulate unity among certain demographic groups, while at the same time capitalizing from their so-called relatable experiences. Because this strategy is very lucrative. Not only does it enhance their public image, but it also opens doors to unlimited profitable opportunities, such as book deals, personal branding ventures, and high-paying speaking events. For instance, Obama charges around $400,000 per public speech fee, and Michelle Obama actually charged $750,000 for a 1-hour public speech that was focused on overcoming self-doubt and promoting inclusivity and diversity. These are topics that gained significant traction during the Obama presidency, and of course is the trending topic of the Biden administration. The Bidens raked in around $15 million within the first 2 years of leaving the White House with the Obamas, while the Clintons have amassed over $26 million in speaking fees. Now, critics argue that while identity politics claim to advocate for marginalized groups, it's often used for financial gain, and this practice creates a cycle of division in society. But I'd love to know what you guys think of this in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Your support really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate it. Thanks for watching.
Turn your ID.
From Kansas is not wrong. In the 237 years of our nation's history, I don't know that there has been a more shameful day in the United States Senate than today. What we just witnessed was a travesty. It was a travesty to the United States Constitution, and it was a travesty to the American people. And it's important to understand why the Democrats did what they did. We're here on the Senate floor right now, but I want the record to reflect, I'm going to do a very accurate count of the number of Democrats who are with us. That would be 0, other than the presiding officer, and somebody has to preside. Not a single Democrat senator chose to come to this floor and listen to one word of evidence. When it comes to the Constitution, the Democrats concluded that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas defying federal law, ignoring the text of the statute, deliberately releasing criminal illegal aliens over and over and over again, that's just hunky-dory. You can't impeach him for that. Every Democrat just voted. By the way, every cabinet member, guess what? You've just been given a blank slate. Ignore the law. When Democrats are in charge of the Senate, the entire cabinet could ignore the law. It is no longer impeachable. In Democrat Wonderland, when a member of the executive branch openly defies the law. By the way, every Democrat just voted that way. They didn't hear one word of argument. The majority leader didn't stand up and say, here's the reason why it's okay. No, he didn't present that argument. They didn't read a brief.
You know why, Mr. Cruz? You know why? Because their families are protected, allegedly. Their families are protected. So that's why they're not showing up, because they know it doesn't affect them. They have immunity, so does the immigrants. That's the law. But anybody else, such as Republican and people who are independent and people who don't want nothing to do with Democrats, they're subject to the laws that are being remade by the Democrats.
Nobody wrote a brief. They didn't care enough to know what Senator Lee just laid out, that the Biden Department of Justice went in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and said if the executive defies the law, the answer is impeachment. The willingness of every Democrat to be blatantly hypocritical. Just last year, the Biden Justice Department said, no. You can't sue in court when we, the Biden administration, defy the law. The answer is impeachment. In like 3-card money. Every Senate Democrat said, no. The answer is not impeachment. I don't know what it is. Actually, I do know what it is. There's only one answer left, which is everyone who is unhappy about the open border shows up in November, and to use the phrase, throw the bums out. Because if you're not willing to do your job, is there not one senator on that side of the aisle who cares enough?
Well, Mr. Cruz, they're getting paid not to care. They're taking deals. They're being blackmailed because of their demonic ways, Senator Ted Cruz. I hope I said that right. And they don't care. Some don't care. Some getting bribed. Some is getting blackmailed. And that's the way of the Democratic way.
To honor the Constitution. By the way, the second article they threw out said lying to Congress is not a high crime or misdemeanor. It's not impeachable. Now, as the senator from South Carolina pointed out, Bill Clinton was impeached for lying under oath. And you know what happened? And he was ultimately acquitted. But after a full trial where they heard the evidence, where the Senate did its job. By the way, one of the impeachment managers was Senator Graham, who presented that evidence right here on this floor. And you know what? Before Bill Clinton, there's a guy named Walter Nixon. You may not know who Walter Nixon is. Walter Nixon was a federal judge who was convicted of perjury. He was from Mississippi. He was convicted of perjury in front of a grand jury. And he was impeached. And it went to the Senate, and the Senate convicted him and removed him from the bench. So you want to know what the precedents were prior to today? You commit a crime, lying under oath, perjury, it is a high crime or misdemeanor that is impeachable. No more. Because understand the Democrats' rule here. This is not about the Constitution. None of them care. By the way, we repeatedly moved. Let's go into debate. Hear the other side of the argument. Nope. Look, the famous 3 monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. That's just evil, what they did. They don't want to know because they don't care, because it's not about the Constitution. It's not about the law. It is about political expediency. But every bit as violent as what they did to the Constitution was, it's even more offensive what they did to the American people. Last year, 853 migrants died crossing illegally into this country. That's almost 3 a day. You go down to the southern border, you go down to Texas, which the Democrats don't bother to do because they don't care about the people dying. And you see photograph after
But guess what, Mr. Cruz? They're all going to have to meet their maker. Now, some of them may have got classified in top secret technology where their body will generate into another body, but not all of them can get that. Not all of them can get that. I say people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer might get it, but not the judges that are taking these bribes, not the people, the senators, the congressmen and women that are taking these bribes. None of them are going to see the life of another day. You know, their families may be born into wealth, but they won't see that because you know why? They'll be in hell. Bernie.
Photograph that Texas farmers and ranchers are finding of dead bodies on their property. Many of my colleagues here have been down there with me, have seen the elderly people the human traffickers have abandoned, have seen the pregnant women the human traffickers have abandoned, have seen the infants and toddlers left to die. The Senate Democrats just told the American people they don't give a damn about the bodies and the people who have died the last 3.5 years, and they don't give a damn about the people that are going to die next week. Next week, more migrants are going to die. When we brought 19 senators down to the border, we went out on a boat in the Rio Grande. We saw a man floating dead in the water. Senator Lee was there. Senator Kennedy was there. He had died that day. The Democrats just told the American people they don't care. When you go down to the border and you look at the children who've been brutalized, just about all of us here are parents. I will tell you, when you look in the eye.
If your priorities are family, work, and school, in that order, University of
Taking a break to the 25th.
Of a little girl or a little boy who's been abused by traffickers. And you see it, you see the pain, you see the agony of children trapped in sex trafficking. The Democrats just said they don't care. They won't hear the evidence. They don't care that it's deliberate, and they don't care that it'll happen next week, that it'll happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, there will be children brutalized because of the Democrats.
Let's see why they don't care. Let's see why. Let's see. We can see, do we have a pedophile in our nations that's executive, top branch? Let's see. What does this mean? Y'all are killing me, man. I can only do. I'm going to leave that one open. Hold on. Sometimes they put wrong titles. Okay. So. Let's see. Here we go. Let's see what he does.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
See you back home, I hope.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay?
No, they didn't. I don't get it. I still don't get it. What about to our Black people? I don't get it. Maybe I'm just wrong. Here we go.
Begin by saying, Councilwoman, and the third time, said, I'm appealing this case. And finally, he took the table, he flipped it up, and he said, saw me bleeding because I saw this guy going to jail, and there was so much character back then, too. So many people didn't get a shot. So many people. We used to play the other pools, and we played basketball at lunchtime, remember? Went over to Riverside, we played. Grand. I walk in and say, and I tell you, folks, I hate asking for money. It's my least favorite part of running for office. I know how hard you work, but if you can afford it. Tell you what, the man, I came down here because I remember the first bumper sticker I saw that made me aware
Hold
when
on.
I was in law school.
I'm not gonna watch the whole thing. All right. Here we go. Maybe
I
this
saw
is it.
That made me aware when I was in law school. Proudly for Holloway. Proudly for your dad. First African American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I tell you what,
Democrats' open border policies, and not a one of them cares. They don't care about the women who are repeatedly sexually assaulted. Again, when you look in the eyes of these women coming over, it's heartbreaking. And the Democrats just said, we don't care. And they don't care about the more than 100,000 Americans that died last year from drug overdoses.
So watch your children, because he like it when they touch on his hairy blonde legs. You know, I can see if he was saying that to an adult female roach. I mean black. I mean, I don't know what to say no more. I don't know whether to call them roaches or call us roaches. What do we call it? Like, it's like a Freddy Krueger movie when we in that roach motel and he just smashes it. That cockroach motel. Ha 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 ha. You know, like, really. I really used to look up to him, y'all. I really do. I mean, not do. Don't ever say that I'm saying I do. I really used to look up to him in the beginning. And my heart was broken, just like some of you newbies, our heart are broken that are African American. He is calling young children roaches. He has an impulsivity to him that he can't tell a lie. He says what he feels at that moment.
Highest in our nation's history. 70% of that is from Chinese fentanyl coming across our southern border. And the Democrats said, we don't want to hear about it. We're not interested in the Americans dying. You know what they also don't care about? They don't care about the criminals that are being released day after day after day. The Biden administration is releasing murderers and rapists and child molesters. And every week we see another story of somebody being killed, somebody being raped, another child being assaulted by illegal immigrants released by Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden. How shocking is it that there wasn't one Democrat human suffering?
With HoneyBook, you can make sure your marketing business is as polished and professional as you really are. Here's how.
Suffering matters. We ought to hear the evidence. How shocking is it that there wasn't one Democrat? One. There are 51 of them on that side. Not a single one could screw up the courage to say, let's do our job, let's hear the evidence. How shocking is it that not a Democrat cares about the terrorists who are streaming across our southern border? The nation of Iran has called for jihad against America. Hamas has called for jihad against America. Hezbollah has called for jihad against America. And Joe Biden and the Democrats have put out a red carpet and said, if you want to murder Americans, come across our southern border, and we, the Democrats, will welcome you. Like many of us on this floor, I was in Washington.
I'm gonna make me some hash browns, not hash browns, but corned beef hash. I think I got some with ketchup. I'm gonna make sure I fry it real hard so it's like a little crunchy but a little soft. some scrambled eggs with cheese and some toast. Not right now though. I love breakfast. Breakfast is like 12 o'clock. Breakfast is so good.
In D.C. on September 11th, 2001. I remember the horror. I lost a good friend, Barbara Olson, who was in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. I remember the smell of smoke and sulfur and burning. I remember the agony, and I remember the national unity that came after 9/11. As Democrats and Republicans came together.
What else would you want the unity in? And the unity came because of, it's always something. Have y'all noticed something? I'm not a congressman or a senator. I'm a politician, a low grade politician. But have you ever noticed when a Democrat is in office, there's some sort of war, and then there's some sort of thing where they sit up there and they bring America together only to have more death occur. Did y'all notice? I watched this video where they said that people been infiltrating Ukraine. Now, they said that there are fake contractors there that are laundering money, allegedly. So I don't really get what's going on. I'm confused. We will never know. You got a group of people on this side saying this, a group of people on this side saying that, but not many of us get to travel, nor do we want to travel and expand our knowledge to what's going on over there. So I don't know what to say as regard to that. But this is an ex-Secret Service agent that is in the regional, the higher up Secret Service. He's an ex-Secret Service agent that said that somebody went over there. I don't remember how exactly he said it. Don't quote me on it because I know I'm going to get quote for everything. And I have something else to say after this. But he said that they went into apartments that they're laundering money and saving money up. Nothing is being built. Nothing is getting done except money is being wired. With that, I don't know what to say about that. Allegedly, I'm not saying it's the truth, but allegedly, I thought for a second that Biden and Zelensky, that was his son, because he used to take trips. I'm not saying that it's the truth, but I could be wrong. Heck, my niece wrote me saying that my brother's alive, but I can bank money, my whole paycheck, on nobody's came to visit him yet. I can bank money on nobody's came to visit my brother yet in that prison. But like I said, I have reason to believe, allegedly, I'm not saying it's the truth, that Zelensky and Biden are siblings, family, with a lot of blackmail, lies, and secrets. Would that infuriate another president? Because in the future, he knows that maybe Ukraine doesn't care about their people. Because why is there people coming to the United States to get a better life? But if Zelensky was such a great president, all that money, like, what about them fleeing? The ones that are dying, that government money is going right back to the government. If they send you a check, I remember day one, I was there with them. Day one, February 22, 2022, when it happened, when the war initially struck. I seen them under the ground. I said, this is going to blow over soon. It's now June 23rd, 2024. We don't know what's going on.
I don't know that I've ever been more proud of a president than when President George W. Bush stood on a pile of rubble with a bullhorn, talking to firefighters and New Yorkers, and one of the men in the crowd called out and said, "We can't hear you," and he responded, "Well, I can hear you, and soon the whole world is going to hear you as well." We were as one.
During that time, Ted Cruz, I was in high school. I was in high school and it was right down the street from my house. I saw the smoke in the Pentagon. It makes me want to cry today. I'm not going to cry on camera, but that is my hometown. Whether I moved from it and came back, the views of some people that done lived there for years don't have the same point of views that I done had while being there. That was my city. Not dominating as a thug or anybody corrupt. As a regular U.S. citizen that was there to flourish and gain education and get a car and gain momentum to get myself together. That's how I saw Washington, D.C., as a diverse way of flourishing, gaining momentum, and getting my education. I did not see it as selling drugs or doing things like I shouldn't be doing. But I made some mistakes, don't get me wrong. I was only 17, 16, and 15. I saw that building burn. People that protected me were dying, even possibly aliens at the Pentagon. We don't, we will never know if Osama bin Laden ashes were really shattered over the ocean. We will never really know what's going on. And I'm not down in those Green Berets that went in his building and shot him in the head. But we would never know what happened to his body. They gave him a better funeral than they gave my mother. Think about that.
Today, not a single Democrat was able to mount up the courage to tell the majority leader, you know what? I don't want another 9/11 to happen. The House impeached Alejandro Mayorkas for, among other things, releasing terrorist after terrorist after terrorist. We ought to hear the evidence. I believe today we have a great.
You get too many of, I'm sorry, Ted Cruz, you get too many of those terrorists at the White House. All it takes is for during chamber session, they just start shooting at the White House with artillery weapons, no matter what. All it takes is just one big gate there. It's just one big gate. All it takes is for them to use artillery weapons and bombs to shoot the sectors where the security, high-link security stands. They're sleeping 400 feet away from the White House.
Risk of a major terrorist attack on U.S. soil than at any point since September 11th. And every Democrat just told the American people it doesn't matter to them to hear the evidence.
Why does Wi-Fi only seem to work in this room?
You need Verizon Home Internet.
How did...
Oh, I let myself in. Get fast, reliable.
I appreciate my Republican colleagues who are here, who are willing to hear the evidence, willing to engage, willing to stand up and defend the American people. But you know what? The Democrats who aren't here, they aren't here because you know who's also not here? If you look up at the gallery, the reporters are all gone. A couple of folks in the back, I hope you all right. But the reporters are absent. That's the Democrats' plan. What is fascinating, we're presenting arguments. Many of us, particularly those of us in judiciary, but many of us have presented those arguments.
That's how you know that his own wife, if not even him in the Clinton regime, had something to do with Clinton's downfall for lying under perjury. Maybe Clinton and President Clinton, former President Clinton, wanted to stop from being president. I don't know. But I have reason to believe allegedly that Hillary had something to do with it because she was so upset with him cheating on her. Even Secret Service, again, their Secret Service team said that she threw a book and gave him a black eye. She's not, when people smell like her, that when black people act like Hillary, be very afraid. When they get hit with a negative comment and all they do is no, you have another side to you, sweetie.
Arguments over and over and over again in hearings. Not a Democrat argues on the other side. It's an issue unlike any other issue I know of in politics. Listen, if we're arguing about taxes, as Republicans, we say we should cut taxes. It's good for the American people. And you know what Democrats do? They stand up. We know their talking points. No, tax the rich. Okay, fine. We have a debate. We're talking about just about every issue. The Democrats will argue on the other side. They have their spin. What is fascinating? Where's Dick Durbin, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, standing up saying, no, it's not right that migrants are dying every day. No, it's not right that children are being assaulted every day. No, it's not right that women are being sexually assaulted every day. No, it's not right that they're releasing terrorists.
What happened to that water? After a while, rigor mortis kicks in, bacteria comes within that lake or that whatever that is. They try to crawl over or cross, like a lot of stuff happens. And if you don't know how to swim, that bacteria fills up like that lake. It's liquid death over there.
Every day. They're not there. Not a Democrat is there. Why? Because you cannot defend it. I'll tell you, South Texas for 100 plus years has been a Democrat region of our state. It is turning red with the speed of a freight locomotive.
You should have said lights.
Because nobody can see the suffering that is unfolding and defend it. And the Democrats, by their silence and by the complicity of the press corps, they are counting on the press corps to write story. Victory for the Democrats. Yay!
Yes, that's what they're doing. They're changing history. They're ignoring the Republicans, and we look like crybabies sitting up there. Please help us. People are dying, and they're ignoring it. Instead, they're putting out mainstream media. They're censoring certain people that are killing other people, and they're changing history. If we do not vote for him this year and he does not change the history and the course of which way we're going to go, our history will be forever changed. 8 years can do major damage. If they're not, look at the power they have. They're not allowing Biden to be impeached because he's being backed by Obama, Hillary, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, some major key players, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, some of the intelligence, some of NSA, some of CIA, some of FBI, some senators, some congressmen are backing him and censoring the information that's coming from the Republicans. He should be impeached by now for the stuff that he done did. But he's not. So what do you think is going to happen at this election? It's a scary thought.
They got rid of the impeachment trial. That's the headline they want. Understand they don't have a substantive defense. None of them disputes a word we are saying. Not a single Democrat has stood up and said, it's wrong that Laken Riley would still be alive if Joe Biden hadn't let her murderer go.
Imagine if Joe Biden wasn't president right now, what would have happened to all these lovely white, black. One lady we forget about went to Mexico and her back was cracked. She was from Charlotte. She went down there, I think, for plastic surgery, and they twisted and cracked her back. The FBI, it sizzled down. So for all my Black, white, and American Hispanics, how many of y'all would have been alive if it wasn't for the cartel? I can just feel their spirits around me when I talk about them. Some of them, I don't know their name. They're trapped in a world we can't see now. They can never touch.
They know it's right. The reason they didn't want a trial is they don't want the American people to hear about it.
Hysteria.
And it's our obligation to make sure the American people do.
We've seen this argument. I mean, we've had Bill Barr was sitting in that seat, and he said he's voting for Donald Trump, even though he said Donald Trump can't get his policies accomplished. He said Donald Trump basically gets in his own way. But I do want to ask you about the election. You were the first senator to object to the votes. In 2024, will you certify the election results? Do you plan to object, or will you accept the results regardless of who wins the election?
So, Caitlin, I got to say, I think that's actually a ridiculous question.
It's a yes or no question.
No, it's not. Let me explain why it's a ridiculous question. It's not a question. You've ever asked a Democrat that?
Of course.
What Democrat?
But what Democrats?
Hold on a second. What Democrats challenge it?
What Democrats? I know. I've been down this road many times.
But
no Democrat. You cannot compare the two situations. We have talked about that. We've seen the audio of that when they protested on the Senate
hold on a
floor.
second.
But has you ever had a sitting president who refused to facilitate the peaceful transition of power, refused to acknowledge that his successor won the presidency?
You know, what would Ja do in this situation? He never told his people to kill Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or anybody. But what would you do in a situation if this is a powerful tool for you to help save America, and all of a sudden it was stripped away from you? My rights has been stripped away from me multiple times. So imagine somebody that's supposed to have did another 8 years, which they couldn't take, get stripped away allegedly of their power. Wouldn't you be mad? This ain't a ice cream. Somebody stole your ice cream sandwich. This isn't somebody told you can't graduate on time. This isn't somebody told you can't have a white collar job. This is something where you are doing it for the people because you care about the people, and it gets stripped away from you. Remember that.
See?
So we did have a peaceful transfer of power. I was there on January 20th. I was there on the swearing in.
Barely.
B, if you look at in 2000, Democrats went to the Senate, or 2001, Democrats went to the Senate floor and objected to George W. Bush. In 2004, they went and objected.
What did the president do?
In 2016, Democrats went and objected to Donald Trump. And so...
And what happened in 2016? Because I remember a guy named Joe Biden was vice president, and he went to the Senate floor and certified the votes.
So do you...
Am I wrong?
So you're asking, will you promise no matter what to agree an election is illegitimate regardless of what happens? And that would be an absurd thing to claim. Like, we have an entire election law system that people challenge elections get overturned, voter fraud gets proven. That happens all the time. And the media engages in this weird game post Donald Trump that you insist no voter fraud has ever existed. Why does every state have laws in place to challenge voter fraud?
Thank you. That's exactly what I was about to say. You took the words right out of my mouth, Mr. Cruz.
If it occurs,
the media
why do you have
doesn't.
election challenges?
This isn't a game. There was no
It is a
widespread
game.
voter fraud.
You only ask Republicans that. You ask
Republicans who tried to block the transition of power. You have to acknowledge that.
So
we've never seen it on a scale of what happened in 2020. We've never seen the president refuse. He wouldn't even let Joe Biden get classified briefings at the beginning. I recall that.
So my
question for you again, free and fair election, will you accept the results regardless of who wins?
From Kim.
You see, that's what scares me.
BlueOceanArray.com and enter a world with over 2 million creative assets to bring your vision to life. When you jump in, you'll find video templates, music, sound effects, footage.
Court on Capitol Hill here in Washington. Every June, it comes down to this: the final opinions from the Supreme Court as they prepare to wrap up the term. June is where most of the justices' landmark decisions fall. Many of them have changed the course of our country's future. Tomorrow, for example, is the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision. That overturned the court's 1973 ruling in Roe v. Wade and said the Constitution does not guarantee a right to abortion, sending the power to regulate the procedure back to lawmakers. This year, it's possible that what the court decides could alter the course of the 2024 presidential election. In a moment, we'll talk with Senators Chris Coons and Lindsey Graham, both of the Senate Judiciary Committee, about that and much more. But first, we turn to Mike Emanuel. Hello, Mike.
The White House is closely watching for the next Supreme Court rulings, particularly the decision over whether former President Trump should have immunity from prosecution. Mr. Trump's chance of having a pre-election trial in D.C. depends on the court's ruling. It's been a busy week for President Biden, who remains at Camp David this week, focused on preparing for Thursday's CNN presidential debate against his predecessor, Donald Trump. The work does not stop, and plenty of problems continue to pile on his desk, including the tightening relationship between Russia and North Korea. The administration concerned over the show of force between Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I know they be laughing at us.
On an official visit to North Korea to visit the isolated Kim Jong-un, the visit to establish a stronger support system to share weapons between the two countries. Also on the foreign policy front, increased tensions between the White House and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's expected to address Congress in Washington at the end of next month. While the U.S. continues to support Israel publicly, behind the scenes, the relationship is reportedly frayed. To the southern border now, President Biden recently announcing another executive action which will make it easier for undocumented spouses of American citizens to apply for permanent residency without leaving the country. While certainly not all people crossing the border pose problems, authorities recently charged 2 illegal immigrants with the killing of Jocelyn Nungare in Texas. She was just 12 years old, and her family is devastated. Rachel Morans, a Maryland mother of 5, was killed last August. Authorities recently charged an illegal immigrant for the crime. The White House expressed condolences, but critics say it is not enough, and the administration has been far too soft on the border. Shannon?
Mike Emanuel, thank you so much. Joining us now is Delaware Senator Chris Coons, who sits on the Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees and is co-chair of President Biden's re-election campaign. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday, Senator.
Thanks, Shannon. Great to be on with you.
Okay, so we've just had some reporting on the border. So let's start there. Just days ago, the president took executive action, this time in order that will essentially give people a pathway to citizenship who've been here for years illegally. They won't have to stay. They will be able to stay in the U.S. They won't have to leave. The Federation for American Immigration Reform says this: parole in place is a concept created out of thin air. Parole authority authorizes the government to permit the entry of aliens into the United States for temporary periods of time on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. It was not intended that it be used to grant quasi-legal status to illegal aliens already in the country. So rather than enforcing existing laws, why is the president creating another executive order, another pathway that not only rewards people for being here illegally for years, potentially hundreds of thousands of them, but
you know, when I tried to go to Canada, they told me I was Biden's problem. I can't even escape right now. You know, I'm not going to escape, but when my probation is over, I may move out of the state because I can't deal with this no more. And I'm going to move somewhere like Russia or China where I can feel more safer, that if something happens to me, they will do swift justice to that person.
They attract even more.
So, Shannon, President Biden has recently signed 2 executive orders on the border and immigration. The one you're just referring to, which allows those who've been here more than 10 years and are married to U.S. citizens a pathway towards a green card. This follows a program that also existed under former President Trump,
We're members of the U.S. military who have someone who's here without documentation but is married to a member of our armed services.
I remember seeing this show where this white man was married to a Mexican, and you can tell that she wasn't into them. This was actually on a Dateline. She married a white man, and she brought her whole. He was rich. She brought her whole family there, and then they started talking crap. I'm not going to let this be a cursing match. She started talking crap about him in Spanish, and he said that he don't feel safe. He wants a divorce. And as soon as he said he wanted a divorce and he was supposed to meet up with her, some fall guy shot him in the head. Just remember that. Just remember that.
To get a green card. The other executive order President Biden signed strengthens border enforcement, makes it harder for those coming to our southern border to seek asylum. In balance, we've already seen the number of encounters at the border go down as a result, but the stronger, more effective action to address border security and our broken immigration system would be real legislation passed by Congress. It'd be more permanent, it would bring more resources, it would actually solve the problem. And my friend, conservative Republican Senator James Langford, and several others, Senators Murphy and Sinema, put forward a bipartisan deal that would have done that a few months ago. It wasn't signed into law only because former President Trump campaigned heavily against it the day before we took it up. The former president wants an issue for the election. President Biden is trying to solve this problem for our country.
But first of all, Republicans had a number of objections to what they saw coming out of that bipartisan.
It's more to the story. We only know what they're saying is in this law or this bill or whatever. We don't know exactly what's in it. Let me see if I can read, if I can find it. This is all word of mouth. You know how what happens is you're in a classroom of 50 and I whisper to you, apples are red. And by the time it gets to the 50th person, it will be blue is the favorite color of Monte Carlo. I want to see this. Hold up. I want to see the bill. Hold up. How many minutes is this?
Do you have a baby or a toddler? If so, I have something that you definitely need to hear about.
Love Every is a subscription-based platform that will send you a new box of age-appropriate toys every couple months.
Just got our Love Every play kit for the month.
This is nice. Hey, these are so cute. I don't know. How come nobody told me I should have bought this earlier?
I love all of these toys. I love that the toys are open-ended. I love how long they can be used for.
They really did such a great job with these new play kits.
I'm really glad that we got this.
Julie, let's bring you in Washington. There was a procedural vote on the bipartisan Senate border bill. That failed. So where does Congress go from here to find a way to actually address this immigration crisis?
Yeah, exactly. It's such a good question. I just came.
Senate Border and National Security Bill. It's filibuster and block. What is this? This isn't what I'm reading. It's the wrong thing. That, you know what? It's starting to be very. What would this bill do? Okay. A border emergency authority adding a new restrictive process until border crossings reach a very low levels. New restrictions. The trigger authority is called the Border Emergency Authority, would enable administration to summarily deport migrants who enter ports of entry without permitting them to apply for asylum. Let me read that again. Okay. It could be activated if a border encounters reach a daily over 4,000 over a period of 7 days and become. That makes no sense to me. So you let people over still, but once it reaches over 4,000 in a period of 7 days, it will become mandatory once border encounters reach over 5,000 over a period of 7 days, or 8,500 over a period of single calendar day. The discretionary authority at the 4,000 day level would be mandatory for the first 90 days. So however many people come in, they can come in as long as they don't come past the 4,000. And they give discretion of when to implement. This is why they said they kicked it back. Everybody's getting word of mouth from CNN, not knowing what it is. I don't even want to read no more. Let's see what the bill would not do. It's like bringing your ghetto, violent cousin to your house, and then they start being violent and ghetto in your house. It's like going to a good neighborhood and bringing somebody violent and terroristic to that neighborhood, a group of people where they're trying to change and be violent. It's just sick. Keep them where they at. Let's read this. What this bill will not do. Just as important as what the bill does require is what it leaves out. Most importantly, with every welcome exception of Afghan evacuees, it does not resolve the status of millions of immigrants in the U.S. without legal status or with only discretionary temporary protections. While the bill preserves the president's authorities to grant humanitarian parole as needed to preserve U.S. and humanitarian interests, it does not offer any permanent path forward for those parolees. The bill also expects the U.S. to deter future migration without any significant attention to the root causes of migration, ignoring the issues that had led people in this hemisphere to ever higher levels of displacement. It does nothing to support people who are waiting in Mexico for their chance at a CBP one appointment to come right away for asylum, or who have been deported there from the U.S. The conditions facing migrants in the northern Mexico continue to pose humanitarian security dangers. Finally, the bill does not support American communities who are trying to support and welcome new arrivals. It offers some grants through supplemental shelter program, but the total amount available under this bill could be under $1 billion. And it does nothing to improve information sharing and coordination between the border and interior communities. As a result, asylum seekers who are released from the U.S. under this bill could be unsupported as those arriving now. Let me go back up. That makes no sense. Hold up. So 13 billion, almost 14 billion remain available to September 30th, 2025 for Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. Another 13 billion. You know what I think is going on? I think it's all being cut amongst all the people that wants the higher up people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Biden, allegedly being cut. The whole deals are being cut to, and it's going back, generating back to him, Zelensky, and the government. Why do we need that much? Operation and maintenance. $2 billion. Transfer to accounts under headings operation and maintenance. $9 million or 802 million. That's all I keep saying is Ukraine. You know what is going to happen? I can see. I can see what's going to happen, y'all. What's going to happen is once they're over here, just like they're doing now, I can see it. They're going to depopulate certain people. Certain people are going to be depopulated. You may not want to believe it. You may don't believe it, but that is what's going to happen. It's no way they're going to, and people are going to move out of the United States. Wherever they migrate, they're going to migrate to. This is going to now be the Mexico-U.S. And it's not even the U.S. is just bumped off. Ask yourself. I'm not saying that's what I had to say. I love all races. I give every race a chance. But this is America. Why are we going through this? Why do we have to go suffer at the hands of what's going on with other people? Why are we suffering? Why are we suffering and dying? There is a crisis at our Mexican-United States border. Nobody wants to do nothing. They're talking about people can come over here at the discretion of the executive president. That's basically that order in a nutshell. People can come over here at the discretion. It cannot reach 4,000 every 7 days. That's why they vetoed it, or whatever you call it. They kicked it back. It makes no sense. But what they're saying on CNN and getting away with sounds like a plan. But if you read it yourself, stop listening to these mainstream media people when if you look at it yourself, you would see. I'm tired, and that's how I found so much information. I am sick and I am tired of people telling me something on CNN and MSNBC and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, I read it and it's totally different. These senators hold your votes in their hands by promoting hoopla. Hoopla, hoopla. They're giving you hoopla right now. I'll tell you this. If you're scared to vote for Donald Trump, don't tell nobody you voted for him, just like I didn't. But they knew, but I wouldn't even care because they're not there They cannot stand over you as you hit that button to vote for Donald Trump. Another scary thing, guess who owns part through another social security number, part of the voter system? I heard through a little birdie. I would never tell what the birdie said, but allegedly, Nancy Pelosi owns through shares part of the company that owns the voting system. Coincidence? It's just not right, man. It's just not right. I do my own research. If you want at their discretion, which have they been making good discretions now? Ask yourself this. The discretion of the president, has he been making good discretions now? Think about it. People have came over here and killed young adults. People have came over here and literally choked out their own children and scarred their children and molested their children and turned their children into demonic beings. They're demons. Some of them are demons, y'all. You just don't know. Why else would a sadistic person tie somebody up just to choke them? What are you getting out of it? The people want to know, what are you getting? And why is CNN not saying nothing? What do you get out of killing somebody? A jail sentence just to get a slap on the wrist? How many years is that girl life worth? Somebody need to be made an example out of, just like they tried to make me into a hate crime perfect person. One of these Hispanics, these illegal immigrants, need to be made an example out of, and the rest need to go to Guantanamo Bay. So get ready, Guantanamo Bay. You need to build more prisons for people like them that are just killing people sadistically. That girl was their race, just like another woman was their race and had a disabled baby, and they shot her in the back and the head. If y'all turn a blind eye, man, it may be y'all next or y'all children. I'm being honest. Be careful out there. I'll be back on here to edit a video. Take care, y'all.